Here's what's coming up on the world today. The Israeli military is said to be sending reinforcements and drawing up reservists to its border with Gaza as fighting continues between the military and the Palestinian militants. Global calls increase for an end to the violence between Israel and the Hamas. The South African President Cyril Ramaphosa condemns the violence, calling for an end to it. Plus, no Ramadan celebrations holding in Gaza and Israel due to the ongoing conflict. A warm welcome to the program and Eid Mubarak to our Muslim viewers. I'm Amarachi Ubani in Lagos. There are anything but celebrations going on in Israel and in the Palestinian territory in Gaza. Both sides have been pounding each other with airstrikes in offensive and retaliation. More than 1,000 Palestinian airstrikes have hit Israel's cities, with the Israeli military responding. The death toll continues to increase. In the meantime, Israel has begun sending thousands of troops to its border with Gaza and has warned it may carry out ground operations. The Israeli Defense Force says troops should be prepared for battle.
Another day beginning with airstrikes, and though it's Eid morning, there is nothing to celebrate on the Palestinian side, as Israeli Air Force continues to strike Gaza, with troops massing at the Gaza border and Palestinian militants pounding Israel with rockets in intense hostilities that have caused international concern. The Israeli military says it has called up 7,000 reservists and cancelled leave for all combat units. About half of the reservists will be working in air defense, artillery, and medical units. In renewed airstrikes on Gaza, Israel struck a 6-story residential building in Gaza City that is said belonged to Hamas, the Islamist group that controls the Palestinian enclave. 83 people have been killed in the city since Monday, and 7 in Israel. There are reports a 5-year-old Israeli boy from the border town of Sderot was killed on Wednesday evening when a rocket hit his building. One rocket fired from the Palestinians' enclave early today crashed into a building in Petah Tikva, near Israel's commercial capital of Tel Aviv, injuring 5 Israelis. Sirens blared in cities across southern Israel, sending thousands running for shelters. The airport remains closed, but open for cargo and private planes. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel will continue striking Hamas while defending its citizens. Earlier today, hundreds of Hamas supporters attended a funeral procession for Hamas commanders killed by Israel, chanting for revenge and commending Hamas' armed wing. On the Israeli side, mourning family members and friends bid farewell to an Israeli soldier who was killed along the Israeli-Gaza border on Wednesday when Gaza militants fired rockets on the vehicle he was driving in. The latest violence followed a month of rising tension, though the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians has gone on for decades. Jews and Palestinians living in Palestine each wanted their own country there, and while the Jewish state of Israel was created on part of the land in a war in 1948, the Arabs who fled or were forced out became stateless Palestinians, and this has been a continuous source of conflict.
Joining us now is former Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Joe Keshi. He joins us from Port Harcourt. Ambassador, thank you for joining us on the program today. And while it is established the Israeli government is trying to clear out Palestinians from around the Al-Aqsa Mosque for annexation purposes, do you think the forceful evictions have been necessary?
Well, you know, Israel has had this policy of trying to annex most part of Jerusalem. And this has been a source of crisis in that area. But on a broader level, it just shows you that the policy of the current prime minister has just collapsed. For many years, when he first came in as prime minister, he was actually a little bit more rational, more reasonable, more liberal. and was interested in working with the Palestinians for the two-state solution. But after he lost the election and then returned, and then determined that he wanted to serve as the longest-serving prime minister, he went into an alliance with the far right. In fact, not just the far right, the extreme far right, and did a complete U-turn that now started to see how they could take out the Palestinians, even living within East Jerusalem or anywhere within the Israel, and then, send them out. And I think in the last 6 years, because the last time this happened, they thought they had won. They thought the Palestinians will never rise up again. But here we are with the same problem. Again, it just shows what I always say, even with regards to this country, that you cannot suppress people. You cannot be unjust and unfair to people and think that they will accept it permanently. No, they will rise up one day, and this is exactly what we are seeing. And now it's not just, and if you notice, you could see that the Palestinian government itself is not speaking. This is a battle between, more or less, between Israel and what they call them, the guys in the radical left also that are not prepared to make any peace with Israel. So we have a situation that is very dangerous. And as things are going, I won't be surprised if eventually the Israeli military move into Gaza as they've done. And the problem is to find a way to accommodate the Palestinians. At the end of the day, that's the solution to the crisis.
So Israel has moved towards the border with Gaza. They're mobilizing ground troops just in case. And it's looking like Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is going all out, to drive these people out. So the issue of land has been a continuous one between both sides. We've heard leaders in the past call for a two-state solution to the Middle East crisis. Since the violence began on Monday, they've also been calls for peaceful resolution. But with the military moving towards the border with Gaza, what do you think? Why do you think the violence persists now, even though there are fears of a full-blown conflict brewing in the horizon, affecting the rest of the region?
You must also read and understand the politics. Israel has no government as we speak. Netanyahu is acting prime minister. They have done 5 elections and he couldn't get a majority to rule. Somebody has been requested to form a government. And I say this, the politics of this crisis is also the fact that he believes and he thinks, and he's done this in the past, that if he takes a very strong stand against the Palestinians, destroy their armory and their spirits, that he will emerge as a victor and possibly win the next election, which is almost likely. So you could see that this is politics. And at the same time, Hamas, that's the name I couldn't remember before, Hamas is also trying to say to the people, we are the only ones that are actually and in reality fighting for the cause of the Palestinians today. The government has practically said, the Palestinian government has practically said nothing. It has not been involved in this. So you can actually say that the whole thing is in a dangerous situation. And it's so unfortunate that almost everybody is helpless, to the extent that the Israelis have said they are not ready for any settlement right now until the objective is achieved. And what is the objective? So they think they can wipe out Hamas. They've done this in the past. Hamas has grown every time they try to take out Hamas. Hamas continue to grow because the people support Hamas struggle for a just and fair, Palestinian state.
Ambassador Keshi, thank you again for speaking with us and sharing your thoughts and your analysis. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and happy holidays right away.
Same to you, sir. Now, the international community has been calling for an end to the violence between the Israeli military and the Palestinian militant Hamas, with U.S. Joe Biden now saying Israel has a right to defend itself. But he did say he hoped and expected that this would be closing down sooner than later.
I had a conversation with Bibi Netanyahu not too long ago. I'll be putting out a statement very shortly on that. My expectation and hope is that this will be closing down sooner than later. But Israel has a right to defend itself when you have thousands of rockets flying into your territory. And I think you're going to hear some good news in the next 24 hours. And I think we'll be getting that under control. Secondly, I have, in the meantime, made it easier for us to, I've lifted some of the restrictions on the transportation of fuel, as well as access to the United States military providing fuel and with vehicles to get it there where places where it's badly needed.
About inflation, sir?
Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson says he wants to see an urgent de-escalation of violence in Israel. The country is also standing behind Israel's right to defend itself against attacks by Hamas.
I think everybody is very concerned, and certainly we in the UK are very sad to see what is happening, and the cycle of violence that now seems to be taking place. And I think it's important that we break that cycle and we end this idea of reprisals. And I think that what everybody wants to see is urgent de-escalation. And that's what Dom Raab has been saying to his counterparts, both in Israel and in the Palestinian Authority.
Here in Africa, South African citizens have held a protest against Israeli airstrikes on Gaza that's left nearly 90 people dead. They call for the international community to impose sanctions on the country for what they said were atrocities likened to apartheid. President Cyril Ramaphosa, on his part, has called for an end to the violence and for peaceful resolution.
Palestine, the NEC reaffirms our support for the people of Palestine in their struggle for freedom and self-determination. And we repeat our condemnation in the strongest possible terms of the unlawful evictions of Palestinians from their homes in Sheikh al-Jarrah and the brutal attacks on Palestinian protesters at Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. We reiterate that the expansion of settlements by Israel has already been condemned by the United Nations and urge the international community to stop Israel from expanding its illegal occupation of Palestinian lands and property.
Police in Kenya tried to disperse pro-Palestinian protests in Nairobi, firing tear gas on the crowds of 200 people. As several demonstrators who had been chanting peacefully at the march in a neighborhood in the south of the capital were arrested. Before they dispersed, protesters marched waving banners alongside the Palestinian flag.
I'm here to protest for our brothers and sisters in Palestine who are being bombed and killed by the occupiers and the Zionists, who do not deserve to be in that land. The land is for Palestine, and Palestine is ours. We are the Palestinians of Kenya.
We're here for free Palestine. We're all the way from Kenya, and we care about Palestine and what's happening.
Free Palestine!
Palestine is being bombed by Israelis. We want apartheid must fall. We want a free Palestine. Why would you bomb kids, women, young mothers, and kill everyone?
We continue to monitor the situation in the Middle East, but still ahead on the program. While we have other stories coming up, care to mix pleasure with more pleasure? And think the beer spa, which recently opened in Brussels. We'll tell you more. Stay with us. Welcome back. And as we said before, there are no Ramadan celebrations going on in either Israel or in Gaza because of all the fighting going on between both sides. But in other parts of the world, celebrations are marked with prayer and caution over the global pandemic. Streets across the Gaza enclave during the Eid al-Fitr would normally have been filled up. with smartly dressed Palestinians sharing sweets and greetings to mark the start of the Muslim holiday. But there is no cheer today. Rockets and missiles in dizzying numbers have been exchanged since Monday between Hamas militants in Gaza and Israel's military across the enclave's boundary. Eid celebrations were also overshadowed in East Jerusalem and the West Bank, as well as inside Israel, where Muslims among Israel's 21% Arab minority, who are Palestinians by heritage and Israeli by citizenship, have joined other Israelis sheltering from rockets fired by Hamas and Islamic Jihad militants. In Iraq's Al-Masfi Mosque in Mosul, worshippers held Eid prayers for the first time since it was heavily damaged during the war against Islamic State that ended in 2017. As one of the oldest mosques in the Islamic world, it is not only an important symbol for Muslims, but also for the city of Mosul. People from the surrounding neighborhoods attended Eid prayers, joined by others from different parts of the city. In Afghanistan, President Ashraf Ghani observed prayers at the presidential palace and in an address to the nation called on the Taliban to choose peace or destruction. Taliban insurgents said on Monday that they would observe a 3-day ceasefire in the country for Eid, starting today, after weeks of increasing violence that gripped the country. President Ghani has told the people that the withdrawal of foreign troops represents the greatest opportunity for the country. And in the world's largest Muslim-majority country, Indonesian Muslims arrived at mosques to perform Eid al-Fitr prayers, despite concerns that the coronavirus pandemic is yet to subside. Worshippers were advised to follow health protocols during prayers in line with the government's calls to limit their movement during the celebrations. Indonesia has suffered the highest number of cases and deaths from COVID-19 in Southeast Asia, with more than 1.7 million people confirmed infections. Take two. Indonesia has suffered the highest number of cases and deaths from COVID-19 in Southeast Asia, with more than 1.7 million confirmed infections and 45,090 deaths, with the nation's healthcare workers hard hit by the virus. Cuts. China has been making great strides with its coronavirus vaccination campaign, with more than 354.27 million doses administered across the mainland. That's according to data released by the National Health Commission today. The figure is up more than 11.59 million doses from the 342.69 million reported on Wednesday. Here's more in the Global Update.
China continues the campaign with the aim of building an immune barrier of 1 billion people against COVID-19 and has been accelerating inoculation paces across the country. East China's Shandong province has launched a new version of health code to encourage vaccination amongst the younger generation. Over in India, the COVID-19 tally rose to 23,703,665 today, with 362,727 new cases registered in the past 24 hours, while the death toll swelled to 258,317, with 4,120 deaths since Wednesday morning. There are still over 3.7 million active cases across the country.
Latin and Greek.
Britain is anxious about the spread of the coronavirus variant first detected in India. Prime Minister Boris Johnson says it has been spreading, adding that there will be meetings later today to discuss what to do.
Really is not up to scratch yet.
Completely free, and it has been free.
Finally, the World Health Organization says a COVID-19 variant first identified in India has been found in 44 countries, with a possible presence in 5 more, and is believed to be resistant to certain antibodies, including from the vaccines. The variant, named B1617 and informally dubbed the dopable mutant, has 3 different sublineages: B16171, B16172, and B16173, which were being found increasingly in other countries and regions, especially in Europe and North America.
As we end the program, Belgians will soon be able to relax in hop and barley as a new spa. A beer spa experience is about to open for the first time in the country's capital. The Good Beer Spa in Brussels was founded by 42-year-old Benedict Bibiok and his girlfriend Anna Bordananda after trying one in Prague in the Czech Republic 2 or 3 years ago. Bibiok prepares the mixture for the jacuzzi, hop, yeast and malt combined with beer. He mixes it and then pours it into the jacuzzi where clients will sit for 45 minutes. Ahead of the June 4 opening, they invited a few neighbors who said they enjoy the smells and the relaxing atmosphere.
I'm preparing the mixture.
And for Christmas, I think it was 2-3 years ago, really gave me a gift voucher to Prague, to a beer spa. It was the best gift ever. We really enjoy it, and then he started to check how to do it, to look for a local, to build one here in Brussels.
I'm preparing the mixture that goes into the jacuzzis, being the ingredients of beer, hops, yeast and malts, combined with beer. So the whole process of the yeast starting to eat away on the malts starts and is accelerated also in the hot water. So now I just mixed it, and this will be poured into the 2 jacuzzis right now. Okay.
If that tickles your fancy, that is. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani.